Welcome back to the Wealth Juice Podcast. As always, it's your boys Ryan and Cory here with another episode for you. Today we were toying around with the idea of what to talk about for the podcast. And what we wanted to dive into today is what we kind of netted out at this is it's been a year and a half since Cory's left the 9-to-5 W-2 world and took a bet on himself to run our business full time. And what we're going to do is give you a peek behind the curtain on not only the decision to do that, but then how the last year and a half have transpired, like the good, the bad, the ugly, and the really great. So overall, I'm going to kind of interview Cory a little bit today, and we're going to chat about this decision and to see if it was the right decision, right? So Cory, take us through, maybe I'll walk down memory lane a little bit, like back to, I think it was last August, and kind of what led to this decision of you going full time.
Yeah, August 2024 was when I was working for my family's business, and we had built the podcast to several thousand downloads a month. We've bought with the Instagram was like 30,000-40,000 followers. Our real estate portfolio was growing. We still owned a little bit more locally, and the goal was to bolster the mentorship community, continue to buy real estate. And I just thought at that time I was like, you know what, like I was just with my girlfriend, so I didn't have kids. Like I was living in my expenses are pretty low, and I was like, it's the time. Like, let's just take this shot. Let's just do this. And this is like the 18-month check-in, if you will, of like what happened, what's going on, and we can talk about the silos of our business and how it's changed, and like how I'm responsible for certain things and you're responsible for certain things. But I mean, to me, I look back and like the decision, and I think like, man, I can't imagine now working a 9-to-5 and in that scenario because of there's like mental freedom, but then also like pressure I put on myself. So it's like double-edged. It's like the freedom I have of like, well, if I want to go to the gym at 12, I want to have breakfast with my fiance, like great, like I can do that. But then it's also like, well, instead of working 50 hours at a full-time job, like I'm working 80 for us and myself. And I think but it's doing all these things that I really enjoy doing. So I think after the 18 months, like part of the question of this episode is like, when is the right time? We've always said no one's going to come knocking on your door with a piece of paper and say, okay, now's the time. But I think that what I've learned in the process is that like over anything that I've actually wanted in my life, it's the control of my time. So I'm willing to work way more hours for myself because I'm still in control of my time, and no one's like looking over my shoulder saying, do this, do that. And that I think is the where I feel like I've wanted to get to, even though the active income has taken a dip from where I was with the W-2 plus this business. So if we want, I mean, we can just break down the silos of our business and like where we're putting our effort in 2026. And we've talked about this in previous episodes, but it's like the brand and partner sponsorships of our growing social media is like a silo that we are focused on. And then the mentorship community is a silo that we're focused on. And then my active real estate agent business is a silo that we're focused on. So like those things kind of all parlay into each other. And then the last one is like our investments that we're buying. And so that is really like I've had to turn my 9-to-5 brain off, and I've kind of figured out like what times of the day and what times of the week I'm focused on each of these things. But like overall, to answer your question, like I think I'm not sure what I expected when I left. Like I knew that it wasn't going to be like, hey, you're matching 1-to-1 with like, this is the amount of money you're making and now you're going to make the same amount of money. It's like you have that hockey stick of like, this is the opportunity, like shooting to the moon, but like you might have to dip underneath, and I have dipped underneath of where I was previously in order to get there. But like what's the alternative? Like what, you don't just like, I think there's a lot of people that think about like leaving their job and they're like, well, if I make 150 grand in my job, like I must be making 150 grand from my business net take home before I can even think about leaving. It's like, dude, in what world do you think that that's like that's the only scenario that it's going to work? Like eventually you're going to have to take this thought process and this creation and put it on paper and then make it happen. And sometimes that means taking a hit. So I guess looking back on it, it's like, I don't know what I should have expected. I feel like I have this like mental freedom, but also like this in the back of my head where I'm like, I put even more pressure on myself. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but that's just being open and honest about like where we're at,
Yeah, I think the business has shifted too, right? There's a lot of silos that pop up where you think, hey, I could take advantage of the way the market is at this point and the way that people are spending money at this point, and who can I help? And it goes into, I feel like some years we're super dialed in on like strictly the portfolio. That's like our foundation, right? Then the next year it's been strictly on the brand, the media, the social media, and then another year it'll be like the agent business, right? And then the next year it's like the sponsorships. And I don't like to take it in years. Like we've kind of come to this thing where
it's more like quarters almost. Yeah.
Yeah, but I will say it kind of feels like there is like an underlying tone each year. Like last year was specifically like when you left I should say a year and a half ago, it was specifically focused on growing the mentorship group. And we had, we talked about this in an episode towards the end of the year. We had a very good start to that, to be honest with you. We were turning like 20, 30 grand months, and, we're pumping money into ads, and it comes to like, to make X amount of money, how much do you have to spend? And I think that's what a lot of people don't think about when they leave the W-2 world. It's like, well, I can go all in and I can try to create something out of nothing and try to make more income, but how much do I have to actually spend to do that and like put the right people around me? Is it like for not only advertisements, but do I need people to pay people to help me run this lane of the business? For example, a podcast producer, an editor, all these other things that like a virtual assistant, things you don't think about on maybe as from the outside in. It takes an army or a village to actually run a business. And it's an interesting thing. I think that's why the first 5 years are so indicative of why people fail in business, right? I think like 90% or like a very high sum of businesses that fail within the first 5 years because they run out of capital.
The biggest thing you lose is the structure of like knowing when money's coming in, and that's the challenging part, because like anybody that's trying to build wealth through real estate, a lot of people, we've said this, like it's on our profile, build wealth with your 9-to-5 jobs. And because we did that for a long time. And I think that most people should buy real estate with their 9-to-5s as long as they possibly can. And I don't think you're going to buy 10 rental properties and then be like, I'm going to live on a beach and I'm not going to work anymore. So it's going to have to be some sort of business that coincides with your real estate that'll allow you to leave the job. Like, are you going to be a flipper? Are you an agent? Are you a wholesaler? Are you, do you manage long-term? Are you a property manager? Do you manage short-term Airbnbs? Like, if you can parlay one of those businesses, for us, it's like agent, mentorship, brand, and investing can all tie in and be the thing that like feeds us actively while we grow our investment portfolio. So I don't think people should look at it like I'm going to leave my job solely from the rental income and the passive income, if you will, that's coming in. But the biggest thing that gets removed is the structure. Before I'm very, very like organized in my head, where like when I was getting paychecks and sales, like I knew that I had this sale. Okay, I'm going to get paid in 45 days. And then the money that comes in, I'm going to put it in this account and I'm going to put it here and I'm going to put it here. And I know every 2 weeks I have a certain amount of money coming in. Now it's like, there's been this whole removal of like the structure. So it's like caused a lot of stress because you don't know when the money's coming. So certain months, like I've had months where I've made actually $0. So it's like, unless you're really organized with your, the position of where your dollars are and how much you have to allocate that's going out at the end of the month, okay, then you have a month where 25 comes in and you're like, oh, it just feels a lot different than knowing every 2 weeks you have like the structure. So I think that's the thing that it's like, you have to ask yourself when you're saying, should I leave the job? It's not that are you built for that, but like, do you enjoy that level of complication and problem solving and trying to figure that out? And some people, the answer is no. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's right for everyone. Some days I wasn't sure if it's right for me. I've come to the conclusion that it is, but that's only through 18 months of trial and error and like, okay, what seeds do I need to plant now that will bear fruit in 6 months? And that's even on active income. Because as an agent, as a real estate agent, and I'm like really growing that side of our business because it's so adjacent to like the mentorship, I know that the more conversations I create and the more value I bring, that fruit is going to be in 6 months. It's not now, right? Where if you're at a 9-to-5 job, you're getting a paycheck every 2 weeks. So it's very different. So it's like, think about it from a mentality standpoint, which one you'd rather have. I will say this. I think the upside at your 9-to-5 is nowhere near going all in on your business. It's just, you can live a great life and you can be happy, but it's like the potential like to fully change your life and the structure of it and like what you do on a day-to-day basis and ultimate freedom. I don't think it's very, very hard to achieve that staying in a position of just comfort.
Whether you're a new or experienced landlord, one of the biggest hiccups that people run into that prevents them from scaling their portfolio is lack of organization. And most people think that they're going to be fixing toilets at 2 a.m. because of that lack of organization. They're going to be getting calls from tenants and tenants are going to destroy their house. One of the things that fixes that completely is easy landlord forms. When you're self-managing property, staying organized is one of the most important things that will allow you to scale. Easy Landlord Forms has tenant screening services, state-specific lease agreements, online rent payment systems, and over 500 landlord forms so that you can keep everything in one hub, scale your rental portfolio with ease, and most importantly, make landlording and real estate investing as passive as it can possibly be. So go to easylandlordforms.com and you can use the code WealthJuice, which will give you 20% off any order.
Yeah. And for us to even have this conversation, it's very interesting. I don't think entrepreneurship's for everybody. I don't think being a business owner is for everybody, but it's very interesting to see people that actually take this path and that do it full time. And I have a lot of thoughts here, but for us, we started in sales, and I think that is directly correlated with entrepreneurship. And I mean this because you're making a minimum salary, right? But then you have a very high upside on commission based sales. Like when you are paid in direct proportion to the service you provide and to how good you are at bridging the gap in finding a solution for somebody, right? Like selling someone into a product. And that's typically, in the 9-to-5 world, whatever you're selling, whether it's software, insurance, cars, whatever you want to say, like there's so many different sales aspects of the world right now. But my point is we learned for years, like that's where we started. And so we learned how to adapt and prepare for the months where maybe you have a month where you're only making $2,000 in commission, or maybe you have a month where you're making $30,000 in commission. So I do think, without us like really like peeling back the layers there, that also prepared you for this level of the game where you weren't used to the same amount coming in every month anyways.
Right.
So whereas a normal, I say normal, but a salaried person only, that would be a bigger jump too, and like a mental game to just get used to that. So it's not only getting used to that from like a commission structure for things coming in, but it's like planning your life around that and your bills around that, because those are constant. Those are still coming on the monthly basis. So how do you pay for those? How do you still invest? How do you invest in the business? There's just so many different things that you have to think about as an entrepreneur. And I think that's why, we've, for the longest time, kind of kept the W-2 jobs to fuel the business, right? And fuel those times of like, okay, well, if we have a down month, we still have the money coming in to pay for the bills, right? And we never I feel like it's always like, even if we're like struggling in a month, right? It's so interesting. It's still, the bills are paid, but struggling is like, well, I can't invest extra this month. Yeah. And that's where we get into this like cycle. We're like, well, am I still getting ahead? Am I still doing this thing? And I think, people are like, well, you have this real estate portfolio and the cash flow from real estate is awesome, right? Now they kind of come on a quarterly basis where we distribute from our larger projects, but it's not, what I found within real estate is cash flow it looks and sounds good on paper, but what it really is doing is paying for your bills. It's giving you reserves, and it's allowing you to, when something happens at the property, reinvest in the property. But the big money is on the appreciation of the property over time and the loan pay down, right? Like the combo of those.
Also, the property that you buy, and we say this all the time, the property that you buy in 2026, you will benefit strongly from the cash flow in that property in 2031. Like that is when, I'm just saying, like that, if you're trying to like change your lifestyle and upgrade your lifestyle, like you can start to really make moves with cash flow. But most of the time, it's not in 2026. You're renovating the property, you're rehabbing it, you're getting your first tenant base in, you're waiting for the loan to get paid down, you're waiting for the rents to be able to to stabilize. That's the 36 months. Then you're having rents increase. And then all of a sudden, you're in a recalibrated position where you're 5 years into a loan. And then 5 years later, that's when the cash flow can really kick in. So think about this. We've been talking about real estate for 6 or 7 years on our podcast. We're just at that point now where the cash flow is starting to really kick in. And we didn't start to buy large projects until 2023. So, we have that 8-12 units up until 2022, and then 2023 started to kick off. So we're in that phase of, okay, the cash flow is really going to pay dividends in 2028, right? So realize that when you start in this game. That's why the dream of being like buying 12 rental properties and sitting on a beach, like unless you have 12 paid off rental properties, which will take a serious debt avalanche or debt snowball over a 5 to 10 year time frame to actually get to that point. That's what we're looking at here. I just think that I'm glad that we're able to like share what's happening in the day-to-day life like so candidly. And I also in this last like year have this newfound respect for real estate agents, because there will be a lot of people that will listen to a podcast and be like, I'll never pay a real estate agent. Like, it's so dumb. I can't believe I'm paying a commission. I've heard this from friends, family. And then I like, now that I'm in the game, I think about, okay, one, I'm going to give the absolute best service possible. You're not going to find somebody that's going to give you better service than me. And that's because a lot of real estate agents aren't great, but I've learned so much. There's not that many fields where you do a ton of work up front, paperwork, doc signing, negotiation, obviously showing homes, trying to figure out like if it's a right fit and working through. And then if a deal falls through, you get paid nothing. And I thought that's really interesting. So I've just like have this newfound respect for these agents that I'm like networking with that have been in the game for a long time, that have built this culture and this business that some people get weeded out. And it's like, oh wow, like that's an entrepreneurial pursuit in itself, just being a real estate agent, right? So, it's just, I guess we're just breaking down the difference between like a steady paycheck and a 9-to-5 versus going this entrepreneurial route, if you will. And sales is entrepreneurial, as you mentioned. But the balance between trying to live off of cash flow and trying to like build a business, I just think that if anyone's thinking about going off and doing their own thing, divest your money into real estate and know that the 5 to 10 year horizons are really what's going to pay you out on that. And from a cash flow, refi, cash out perspective, but you got to create a business that brings you active income. And I think that when we first got started, I was like, I just want to buy rentals and then eventually live off that. And it's like pretty hard to do.
Yeah, that's why I think it's important to talk about in this episode is like, when you read the books, like some of them are dated, right? Like some of them are like, a lot of them are pre-COVID, honestly, too, which is interesting when the world shut down and they're talking about like the 1% rule and all that stuff. And you can, once in a while you can find something like that, but like $1,000 cash flow properties, like coming up left and right on the market, like it's a thing of the past. But that was the thing where you could say, okay, well, if I have 10 rental properties and I'm making $1,000 a month, that's $10,000 a month, right? And it's just not true. And that's what I like. Even if you have that amount of cash coming in, there's so many other things that you have to pay for within that. You're not netting out that 10,000 in cash flow, even if that's what they say in the books. It's just not happening. And that's the dream that is sold within real estate. And I think that's what gets a bad rep, because people then they start buying rentals and they think that they're going to find the end of the rainbow by doing it a couple times. And we've lived that, right? And like, that's why we didn't immediately, when we bought our first one, we're like, this is awesome. It actually did cash flow $1,000 a month.
It did, yeah.
500 each. We're like, okay,
but
this is great.
That was because the rent was $1,700 above the mortgage.
Yes.
And that's when it cash flowed $1,000, not when the rent was $1,000 above the mortgage, right? So, dude, I totally agree. And another thing is like, we've grown our portfolio as general partners to buying the 18 unit, 10 unit. And for people that are newer here, we just closed on a 7 and an 8 unit, and we're already looking at 1.25 for 2026. So we're buying and we own a percentage of these larger projects. But I was just thinking about our personal, you just moved to your new dream home, right? And your previous property you turned into a rental property, and I may butcher the numbers here, but I think your mortgage was like $1,800 and you're renting it for like $3,500, something like that.
Very close.
Close, right? Yep. So my thought is, if for people that are trying to grow their real estate portfolio, the number of doors is not really an important thing, because I was listening to a big time influencer who's like a business owner talk about how he bought 50 single family homes and they all cash flowed $100 a month. So that was $5,000. Now he had a bunch of money to dump into real estate, but then when a heater went out, that would eat into 60% of his cash flow or whatever it was. So to me, that's the wrong approach for you. What if you held on to your previous residence that you're now renting out? Right now, it probably cash flows over $1,000 a month because it's a newer property. But if you held on to that forever and paid it off, and then by the time that's paid off, that $3,600 or $3,500 a month rent is $5,000 in 15 years, and you have no debt on it, you're cash flowing $4,000 a month with maintenance and taxes and whatnot, or $3,500 a month on one property. So we've learned that now to look at it more like, how much money is that actually bringing you? And you can have a smaller portfolio. And there's people in our community that are investing in places like Detroit or Augusta, Georgia, or Kansas City, that our strategy with them is, hey, you can go buy a property for $150,000, put 25% down, you have 75% LTV on it, and then you can work towards maintaining your job and paying that loan down and having 5 or 6 properties that actually will be paid off and cash flow $5,000 a month. That's game changing. So there's a difference between trying to scale it on the buy 50 properties or try to buy one a year for 10 years and then use the cash flow to pay off the first one, second one, third one. Before you know it, 10 years down the line, you have 5 paid off properties that are actually bringing you money. I mean, you've seen some influencers and some real estate people, like, I'm just throwing a name, Austin Rutherford. I was looking at his Instagram the other day, and he was talking about how he's selling some of his portfolio to pay off other properties in his portfolio. So for us, that's what I'm excited about in the future. But to get back to like, that's the architecture of our portfolio, and like parlaying that, how much cash flow is coming in with the actual business income, and knowing, just having this changing months of money that's coming in. It's kind of, that's been the challenge.
Hey, let me pause the episode real quick. Let me know if this sounds like you. You're making six figures, you're climbing the corporate ladder, investing in your 401k and your Roth IRA, and maybe even a brokerage account. But deep down, you're asking yourself, is this really it? Like, am I just going to do this thing for the next 30 years and hope to retire in my 60s? That was exactly us just a few years back. We were curious and excited about real estate, but overwhelmed and without a roadmap. If you fast forward to today, we've built a portfolio of over 80 cash flowing units and grown our net worth to over $2 million. We made it our mission to help busy professionals like you take that same leap and start building generational wealth for yourself and your family. That's exactly why we created the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, a private real estate investing community designed to help you get your first rental property under your belt in as little as 90 days. Inside, you'll get direct access to us, our full investing network, private off-market deals, and our exact playbook, and a community of investors who are closing deals every single week. That first property changed everything for us. We always talk about it. It was the true foundation for building generational wealth. And honestly, if we had access to something like this when we first started, we'd be 10 times further along by now. So if this sounds just like you, click the link in our show notes and schedule a call with me. Yes, me. I'll be taking the calls. We'll go over your goals, map out a plan, and get you ready to close your first deal. Let's get it.
Yeah, well, this is just a fun conversation in general, but these deals that you're talking about, for us, we read about all the deals that we're talking about here, is like these like mythical like 1,500 cash flow a month, whatever. But what I'm coming to is the small but mighty portfolio is something that I think people should strive for, because it's less maintenance, and if you make your money when you buy, right? Like everyone was telling me, like, when I'm like, hey, listen, we keep calling it a dream home, but it's just like the home that I want to raise my kids in, right? You want to buy some land, you want to get a property that 4 bedrooms, they can run around, and like, that's the dream, right? That's the American dream, or whatever. That was something that my family wanted to do. So with that, everybody's like, oh, no worries. You already have had this other property for 7 years. Just sell it. Nice. When I say everyone, like family members, I'm like,
yeah, take $300,000 and put it into this.
Yeah,
and buy a $1.5 million home, right? It's like, well, should I do that? Right?
And like it just goes back to our conversation of delayed gratification, and having been in this game for so many years, but also interviewing so many people and getting their perspective has helped us. And for me, I'm just like, no matter what I do, I'm like, I was telling everybody, like, be back against the wall. I'm not selling this property. I have to do whatever I can. I'm going to move around other money, sell stocks, like change around my portfolio, reallocation that I talked about, like whatever I have to do to keep this property, because we bought it right. It's going to cash flow heavy. And then I don't need it. It's going to equal 3 or 4 rental properties over the long period of time. And you already kind of ran the numbers there, more than that. So, and then it's just this one asset that I can take care of, pay off the loan. I'm just so excited about it, because I'm very like an efficient based person. And so is Cory. If you kind of haven't heard it in our previous episodes, like we like to, how to put the most effort into one thing, right? And have that thing grow versus like spread ourselves thin in a bunch of different areas, because we realize that it just doesn't work that well. And so that's like the reallocation of our rental portfolios. Like he's got his place in Tampa, I have my rental up here, then we have our primaries, and then now our bulk of our portfolio is up in New England, because now it's like it's just siphoned out the right way, and now we can dump cash flow into the right properties and reinvest that way. But my point in saying all this is, there's within our business, right, like Cory's decision to leave and go full time, there are months that are, status quo, bills are getting paid. And then there's months that it's like heavy influxes of cash because a property will sell, or we'll refinance, or the mentorship program is really taking off. We bring in 15 new students or whatever it is, right? There's so many different things. A couple properties get sold. It's this flywheel. And going back to like the decision when to leave, like, I think you can get into this, but I wanted to chat about it. Is like, I feel like we realized how much we were leaving on the table, meaning like people we were able to serve by us both maintaining our 9-to-5s. And there were people that needed conversations, whether it was, hey, they wanted to buy a property, they had no idea how to run the numbers, or they didn't want to figure out how to run the numbers, they just wanted someone to help them buy the property locally, or they made a ton of cash in their W-2 and they just wanted to invest passively in properties, and like could they find a lane with us and to jump into a bigger deal, other things. And it all takes time, energy, and effort, and cultivating relationships, conversations, still running the podcast, still running the socials, still, networking locally. So all these things, right? And then like your family business was like, you were kind of like, hey, there's like a defining moment within the business, and I can either keep going down this path with them forever, or I can make my own name. And I think you're one of the things that you told me was really cool. You had the conversation with your dad, and you're like, Dad, I'm gonna go bet on myself. And like, dude, as a dad, there's no cooler feeling. He probably was like, damn, like, well, I'm not going to see Cory every single day with the business, but I'm so proud of my son for like bucking up, and he's making his own name. He's doing his thing. It's pretty cool.
That was challenging because my dad's a very emotional person. So he was coming, he said this to me recently. He's like, it's hard because I don't call him all the time, and I used to see him every day. And it's weird. Like I'm like, damn, I really have to think about this. Like I said this in a previous episode, like 34, he's 68, he's going to be 69 in a month. I'm like, whoa, like it keeps going, So the only constant is change. And that's what I've realized is like, you do something long enough, you're like, it's going to shift. And now with the world and AI, how fast things move, like our business is probably going to be different in 6 months than it was 6 months ago. So that decision to leave, it's like, I don't even know how to hindsight process it. Cause it's like, in between that, we had all this geopolitical stuff, and then our business changed, and then the AI comes out, and then so it's like, how do you know if it's the right decision? You just try to make the best decision that you possibly can with all the information that you have at that exact time, and then you just bet and then hope it works out, and then you make new decisions later. Like, what else is it besides coming to new forks in the road? So I just knew that they built this thing, and it wasn't my thing. Like my grandfather started the company, and he got it off the ground, and they built it, and it wasn't my thing to continue to build. That's what I knew. That's all I knew. And I left a lot of stability. So it's hard, man, because I think that if you compare yourselves to your friends or other people that are climbing the corporate ladder, it's like, some things look good on paper and they're not actually good in real life. And I watch friends, family, people that are like climbing this thing, and it's like their income's going up, and your income is like at this point where it's like about to hockey stick. You just try, if you're listening to this, to not compare yourselves to those around you, especially if you're starting a business, because your upside is so much higher if you just keep doing it. But you're not. If it were easy, everyone would be a business owner. Like everyone would just go out and do it. And that's why I've had conversations with mentors that are like, look, like I've been with $100 million mentors that are like, I've been in situations where I didn't think I should proceed. And I just said to myself, just do one more day. And if you say that enough days, you'll eventually get through the fire. So it's been weird. It's been hard. It's been great. It's been challenging. I think I'm hopefully giving people advice so that they can ask themselves, what should I expect? Well, you should expect uncertainty. Even still 18 months in, you should expect uncertainty. And then I've had to pivot what I'm doing on a daily basis to try to drive revenue in different directions. We've had to put more dollars and time and energy into the brand to get it to a point where it could support brand sponsorships. We've had to change the podcast format and upgrade to a studio because we want it to be more professional. And you dump money into some areas and you take money from other areas. It's like, not only are you running like an entrepreneurial venture, but you're like, I feel like I'm like an accountant too. So it's like, it's I don't know. A lot of it's like stuff I like to do. But
you wear all the hats as a business owner.
Yeah.
You do. It's not like there's, dude. Some days you're a UPS guy, like you're delivering stuff, you're sending out things to clients. Like, I think it's good perspective to go under the hood on this thing because a lot of people online and just business owners in general, I feel like I think it's mostly on social media. They portray this like, hey, I'm flying out, going on this vacation, I'm doing this, I'm going to this mastermind retreat, and it's like all these things. And half the time, these people are really struggling for cash, or they're just trying to shake it down and make it. It's just an interesting thing. Now, and I'm only saying this from perspective of having conversations with these guys like offline too, and just like everyone's struggling in their own way, and then other people are succeeding in other ways. And don't get me wrong, there are people that are making a ton of money in their business. But there's also people that are making a ton of money in their business, but they're also outlaying a ton of cash to upgrade and maintain that business, hiring a ton of employees, upgrading their clients, making sure that they are always taken care of. So there's these things, and it's like trying to find the leanest and meanest way to do this. Cory and I never wanted to be the people that have a business of 50 employees, right? Like, it's just like we talk about the small but mighty. Like, how can he and I provide great lives for ourselves and our families, have fun, chase excitement, and do it together, and do something that we're passionate about and serve other people, but also make sure we're taken care of too, right? Without that uber stress level of worrying about cash all the time. And it's like always year after year, the last couple of years, like we really were doing this as a passion project for a while until about a year and a half ago, where it was like, okay, like we need to pay Cory to live if he's going to do this full time every single day, and then also still, generate the portfolio. So now it's like, I don't think the first 4.5 years, it was a foundation. And now it's like really trying to monetize and do this thing and run it as an efficient business. And that has become a struggle, but it's super rewarding. And like we just mentioned, it's kind of an aside from our business, but in a previous episode we did about selling one of our properties to live our lives. Like the coolest part to me about real estate, like that it's adjacent to our business. It's built in. It's not, we have a couple of different businesses, but one of our silos is like our personal portfolio that we do together. And to be able to take a year's worth of salary and get it paid in one day, it's pretty cool. And you're like, all right, well, like I'm good. Like that year that was really a struggle. Like we're good now. Like let's move and shake. What's next year going to take, So
yeah, you take so many times we talk about planting the seeds, but to watch the seed grow into the tree and then, I mean, that's maybe not a bad analogy, but then like have the apples fall from it. So it's like we have when you run a business for 5 or 6 years, you're like, I think like you're going to realize all those fruits in that time frame, and you're not. You're going to still be planting seeds, and the trees are going to be growing slower than you thought. But to have the one like case study to show everybody that we planted a seed in 2021 and it grew to 4 times the amount that we thought it would 4.5 years later, it's like, oh, okay. The proof of concept that we're telling people to do, like I can show you this actually works. So go buy real estate, and like if you need help, we can help you. So I don't know. That's the whole exciting thing, is that there are silos of it and there are different ways for us to make money. And I'm excited for 2026 because I feel like 2025 was like such a whirlwind of just like figuring it all out. And now I feel like we're like really aligned and we can move the ball down the field. And I'm sure there will be new challenges that come up that'll scare the shit out of me then. But it's like, okay, well, I'm at least more equipped for it now because I've seen what I've seen this past year, and I've had to do all of that while trying to get married and trying to like still live. Even though I've told my fiance a number of times, it's like, yeah, this is like we're building together. Like this isn't the time where we're like spending a bunch of money, and like it's in order to like humbly grow a business, I feel like you have to take a step back, even though and your age is just a number. But like I feel like a lot of people when they're in their mid 30s are like, oh, I gotta live for the now. That's been a hard balance. It's very hard. I think and just like brick by brick building this thing every single day. Like I feel super old sometimes, and like I'm like 35 this year, and I'm like, dude, what the hell just happened? Like, how did I get here? The last 15 years or 10 years, whatever, like after 25, they flew by. And sometimes you're like, you look back and you're like, wow, I've surpassed where I thought I'd be. And like, I'm already like, people are struggling to buy a home. We have all this real estate, we have this business. And like, but then I look at myself and I'm like, we compare ourselves to the other people out there too, that like we're interviewing on the podcast. We're like, wow, we're so far behind. And it's like its own journey for you. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around, and you try not to compare yourself to others. And it's just like, I'm proud of how far we've come, and we've done this together. And it's been amazing some days. It's been super hard some days. And the hard thing about entrepreneurship and like betting on yourself and like this whole game in business ownership is like, you don't know the answer, and you don't know, there's no direct path to get there. You don't know when you're going to win. No. You have no clue. That's the like, you just don't know if you're going to win. You could lose. We could lose.
Yeah.
We're not going to hopefully lose it all, but I guess the only way to lose is to just stop.
That I actually just literally this morning posted a quote. Wow.
Scroll down there if you could, Terry.
We deleted.
It's funny.
I'm gonna read it to you.
We just put this post up.
I got it. I'll call it right out. One more down, right next to
on
that.
the left. Yeah.
Winners are simply losers who decided not to quit. I won't read the whole thing, but the caption is, it starts with, "You can't lose if you don't quit." Read that again. So my point here is, if you just keep showing up,
we got to practice what we preach.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we are. we haven't stopped. We fucking show up every goddamn day for this thing, man.
All right, good.
So it's good. And my point is, like, at some point,
Ryan makes posts sometimes so that I see it on our page, and he's like, "All right, dude, this one was for you." And it's like so funny because if we're having bad days, he'll like post something that he was thinking that like he subliminally knew that I needed to see. So funny because I get surprised by it. I'm like, all right, yeah, you're right. I should probably do this.
So there's this like, I forget what month it was, but it was a tough month, and we were just like, we hired a consultant. It didn't work out. We spent like $15,000. It was just stupid. And we were like, we realized like it didn't work. work. And we were like, I was like, and I could tell Cory was going through it in his head. He's like overanalyzing, he's thinking about all this stuff. And I ripped a post online, and it was just I forget it portrayed perfectly into it. And I didn't say anything to him. I just posted, I get a screenshot. He's like, dude, needed that today. And I was like
from our own page.
From our own page. I was like, that was for you, bro. And it was just like, it's just funny stuff like that where you're like, I don't know. But that's just our relationship over the last years. You gotta you look out for your buddy, and it's overall, I will say this game has come to a point where it's back against the wall. The world is changing so rapidly quick. And I think about, and one of the cool conversations we can get to in like other episodes is like this whole idea of like artificial intelligence. And I don't know how that's going to shake out the world. Like not only the robotic side of things, but like they're talking about this universal basic income coming in potentially. And like Trump making all these cuts on these things, and to make people like have an excess amount of cash, and like restructuring things. And
the art renaissance.
It all plays into your business too. I don't care what business you're in, right? You could be a plumber, you could be an electrician, you could be a real estate entrepreneur, investor, you could be whatever. It doesn't matter. It all impacts you. And it's like, for us, I don't think, when you first start a business, you're just like, people are going to come by if it's something that you're solving and you're speaking directly to the person. I don't care if you are speaking directly to your avatar that needs what your service is. Sometimes outside factors just play into it, and it's not the right time, or they balk. And like you could say, well, you're just not good enough at sales. But like even that, there's some times where like economic factors and outside personal factors play into it, and it directly impacts your cash. And I think that is one of the things that is like, luckily we've been in sales to get told yes to the finish line, and then someone just ghosts you, or you never hear from them again, or they keep making excuses, follow up with me then. It's like you become callous to that. And I think for people that want to get into entrepreneurship and business ownership, what I have told people, Cory and I have kind of come to the conclusion is like, to test the waters for yourself, to see if you're kind of built for this next level without going all the way in on this, take a sales job and do it for a year and see how you feel. Like, you're going to be definitely a better person, better business owner, and better professional after doing that, because you're going to learn a lot about yourself and learn about rejection. You're going to learn about powering through, adapting, all these things. And then when you get thrown into, hey, you want to start your Etsy shop, you want to start whatever business that you want to get into. Maybe you want to be a real estate agent. That's sales in itself too. That would be a great way to jump in, right? You have to create a business for yourself. You have to go find clients. You have to work on marketing, all these things. But my point is, start there, and then you get a real taste for what it's like to have to move and shake. You're still answering to the man, right? You're still clocking in. So that's like another dichotomy too. You're like, okay, well, if I want to, then the next stage is me leaving the man, right? And working for myself, answering to myself, building my own schedule, doing my own thing, trying to move and shake dollars. So there's a lot to that. I just want to give a little bit of like a how-to. And most people, 90% of people won't do that. But my point is, the people that do that, you'll come back and you'll be like, thank God I did that, because that's what we did, and it really shaped us.
I'll leave with this. I think the last thing I'll say is that if your worst case scenario is everyone else's everyday reality of working for somebody else, then don't you think in most situations you're way more equipped to handle what the 9-to-5 life is like, is if you go try and be the entrepreneur that you're going to potentially end up working for if it doesn't work out. It's like, for me, if everything doesn't work out, my resume for working for a high-level multimillionaire is like, dude, you did all this on your own, and I decided that it wasn't for me. I don't think that's going to happen. But I'm just saying, like, you can turn back and be like, yeah, I built this business, decided it wasn't for me. If you're an entrepreneur and you know what it takes to do that, to hire somebody who's also tried to be that, is like, those are out of the box thinkers. Like, those are the people that you want. And I guess what I'm saying is that at certain point in this realm of what we're doing, like, if our company is sellable and somebody wants us to stay on as podcast hosts, and I'm not opposed to working for somebody else if that's the path that we go down, but I'm saying, like, it's interesting to know that, like, if you go and you build and you meet and you shake hands and you create relationships and you bring value, like, you're going to find new people in your life that can bring you new opportunities in ways that you didn't even think existed. And that might be selling a company and going back to work. But you're in a much better position to, like, make those decisions with a clear head. To me, you don't know what you don't know. So if you just sit in comfort all the time, it's going to be hard to achieve the life that I think that most people really want. And you'll never know unless you just fucking do it.
No, it's well said. I mean, for us, I think we got a little bit more clarity, and who knows if it's the right answer or not. But at the end of the year, we just kind of like got to this point where we've hired so many different consultants, tried so many different things, and we're like, coaching ourselves into like, dude, we need to dump the money into this one, or we need to pause in this one. We shouldn't go here. It was just like, we need a coach, so we hired a business coach at the end of the year, and we're just very new with conversations with him, but he's kind of led us to this point where he's like, you guys need to focus more on networking and in-person things and like building a grassroots community localized. And we're like, man, I thought we had a big network, because we do. We've had a lot of people on the podcast with a lot of things. He's like, but how many people can you pick up on your phone? Like, that's a great massive network, but like, how many close-knit ones can you call for any questions or anything like that? And so that was a good question. But then it was also like, how many people live close by to you? Like, how, like, you're building this portfolio local, and then also in New England, like, how many of those people can you meet their connections and spiderweb this and do this? And because it's only going to take one other person to be able to patch in to build another stream for you guys. So my point is, he was focusing more on the networking, and it's something that we thought we already bolstered and had a big, presence on, but it's been virtual and it's like spread across the states, which is so interesting, because that's what Zoom forced us to do with COVID, right? And we've done this, and then even having the 9-to-5s and maintaining that, it's like you're not meeting with people face to face all the time in like Wyoming or California, right? You're hopping on Zoom. So it's like, my point here is now, as we turn the page to 2026, we're going to be hyper focused on doing in-person things, whether that is our own real estate meetup local in Philly, co-hosting.
That is
events.
happening, by the way, just so everyone hears that. We talked about this the other day. In February, this podcast will be out in like the end of January. In February, we're going to be hosting a in-person in Philadelphia local meetup. So we'll stay tuned, but to go off what you're saying, that's definitely happening. It's going to be towards the end of February. So we'll announce it on the pod. Love to have people there that are local.
Yeah. I guess my point with that is like, it's gonna, like, our presence, we want it to be felt in Philly, Jersey, like our localized market, where we can really sink our teeth in and help people. Cause like, this is where a big portion of our network is. But then also it's like, does it turn into hey, this is where we're gonna, Wealth Juice will host it, and then you have the picks and shovels, whether it's like a mortgage company, real estate agents, XYZ show up and like they are guest speak, or it turns into a local real estate meetup group where it's something where Cory and I host it, and it adapts and it changes. Maybe it's once, twice a month. But my point is, I think with 2026, everybody's feeling this like pull towards like a void in their life with relationships and like the human connection. When we talk about social media, we talk about AI, and like people are sunk into their phones. And I think Cory and I fall victim to this too. And it's like, we have all these relationships and friendships, and it came to Anthony, one of our community members. And for me, it was like meeting him in person for the first time after we've had so many Zoom conversations, phone calls, and like him basically like helping us get this project to the end of the finish line when we really didn't think we were going to do it, and then meeting him in person. And he's just like, he wants more, and he's built in locally to Philly, and he approached you, and then you guys met, and like, you could talk about that, but I believe you found like a venue that we could potentially host that.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal for 2026 is to bring our presence in person. So we have a venue, we have a plan. We're going to start with a local meetup. And we want to see familiar faces there. And again, the whole goal is to try to expand our network and try to bring value. And like, that's what we're about. So if you're thinking about buying real estate, or you're thinking about being an entrepreneur, like, hopefully that we're a resource for people that are like, the purpose of this episode is to be like, when is it time for you to take the dive? And the best time is when you have people around you that are doing the thing, so that you feel like a hair or a percentage more comfortable to be able to be like, I can do this too. And that's all that happened to us, is we were around people in the beginning that were like, we did it, you can do it. And that's what we're hoping to provide and support. And not to speed demon wrap this up, but I do have a call I got to get to.
No worries. All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up then. I thought that was a great episode. Thanks for the context to your thoughts on diving in on the business. I think it's super important for people to just learn from someone that's done it, and just to see the highs, the lows, the ups and downs. And it's an evolution. I think you said this was like a check-in, right? So we'll do another check-in and see how it's going. But we're excited for 2026. We're aligning the wheels here, if you will, just to dive in. I think it's going to be a heavy year for us building our real estate portfolio even further and scaling units up in New England. I already told you about our goal over time to get 500 units up there, and to take property management in-house, and then really to serve people locally in Philadelphia, get a stage presence in person. I think it's just going to skyrocket things. So if you've been listening to us for a long time, or if it's your first time, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next week.
Before we wrap this show up, I want to leave you with this. If you're listening to the show, chances are you're doing pretty well in your career. You're making maybe six figures. You're putting money into your retirement accounts, maybe stacking some cash in a brokerage account, but you're still waiting for that next level. And here's the truth. Waiting just costs you time. Every month you're on the sidelines is another month you could have had a property paying you and another step closer to financial freedom that you didn't take. Ryan and I know this because we stayed on the sidelines too long. We talk about this sometimes. We had the money, but not the guidance. And once we finally got our first property, everything shifted. It was the catalyst that built our entire portfolio and ultimately gave us freedom. And that's exactly why we built the Wealth Juice Inner Circle, to cut out wasted time, just give you the exact blueprint and surround you with a network of people who are closing deals every single week. So if you're tired of waiting and you're ready to finally get your first deal, click the link in the show notes and schedule a call with me. Let's map out your strategy and get you moving before another year slips by.